How's it going, gamers? Welcome to the dojo. I saw this post about a month ago on a subreddit that I follow that I intended to originally make a video about after initially seeing it and just never got around to it, so here we are now. And I want to preface this by saying, while this is a reflection of a community in the gaming space, it's not a reflection of the community in the gaming space. And in general, and as a whole, in my experience in this community, both online and in person, it's been one of the greatest aspects of this hobby. Getting to meet people through Discord, whatnot, Reddit, and so on. And just locally in the scene here, where I've gone to these game swaps, these local stores in the Bay Area, across the Bay Area, have really made my experience and my journey into this hobby of video game collecting so much more enjoyable, and kind of is why I'm so passionate about it and have been for the last couple of years. This is not the atypical video, I would do on this channel, but it is around the discourse of what it means to be a collector. And I started this channel to not just highlight games, but my journey in collecting them. And this post in particular here, that was titled, I started collecting in 2024, and these are all the consoles I've managed to amass, and I hope 2025 brings as much luck. So this was just a month ago, the turn of the new year. You can see here, looking at the posts, a lot of Nintendo, a lot of variations of the Fantastic 64s and some Japanese editions, some Xboxes and 360s and OGs, PlayStation, you've got the PSX there. And then it goes on to show like a bunch of handhelds and Sega and Atari that they've amassed, as well as some video games. Now, this post has been out for a month. I don't have as much context in terms of like OP's, original poster, if they ended up kind of adding in context or what have you, but nonetheless, I'm assuming this is a lot of what they've collected in the last year. Whether or not some of this they already had from the past or what have you, or childhood, I don't know. But the comments here, and this is where it kind of takes a turn, were a mix of what I would call negativity, jealousy, shade, and just a bunch of other stuff here. A lot of people commented on the pace at which this collector is going. How do you do this without going broke? And then the internet likes to chime in with a bunch of assumptions here, and so on and so on. This person says you don't need the chords if you're not playing them. And yeah, you got that kind of discourse of people who are saying like, hey, I'm not trying to sound mean. It's kind of like the backhanded compliment or the type of opening where it's like, these posts are weird. It feels like hoarding instead of collecting, and they have a bunch of different variations of specific consoles and so on and so forth. This person, I agree, opened with this portion of like, collecting without curation is just hoarding, and that changed their perspective on collecting. But a lot of people said that, or he said a lot of people in the subreddit are hoarders versus collectors, and I don't necessarily agree with that portion here. Again, it wasn't everybody who had like that sentiment. You got a couple of people, though this account is now deleted, who had differing opinions. This person went on to say like, because they got into it so early, so heavily, they're probably going to burn out way quicker. And some of these people might be people who, don't appreciate these things because they got them so fast, or they're going to like sell off their entire collection. The comments go on and on and on. So to the most part, and to summarize, it's a lot of people, I think, either A, upset because of the rate or speed which this person collected their things. 2, I'd argue it's probably jealousy. It's a little bit of jealousy in that like they have the resources to do so. Or 3, kind of just upset from the perspective of a collector and how this is not how they collect and this is not how you should collect. And reminder, this definition of the subreddit is quite literally a place to share ideas, tips, tricks, or your secrets, as well as show off your collections. And I think that's key. This is a game collecting subreddit. And I think collecting, not just for video games to start off, is a very unique and, maybe not sensible thing to do. It's a thing that people do because they're passionate about different things, whether it is video games or, I don't know, trading cards, or something as luxurious as cars, which people collect. Quick interjection, future editor Adrian here. I forgot to throw in this piece, but I did want to mention it because I think it's quite important. When you talk about like this collection or this post and what's practical and not practical to have this many consoles or this many different editions, I think practical is a interesting word in this space in particular. I think this hobby as a whole is a nice to have, but it's not necessarily a practical thing outright. You can make the arguments of what OG hardware can do and the experience of OG hardware, like on a CRT, how it looks and feels. You can make the argument about physical media over digital media and some of the pros and cons there. But at the end of the day, I think most of us can probably agree there is a lot of level of convenience and ways and methods nowadays in this day and age to play a lot of these games where it's not practical at all to even maybe buy them. My copy of Clay Fighter Sculpture Cut that I'm looking at, one of the grails in my collection, is part of a bigger collection, and the value of that, which cost me an arm and a leg, is by no means equivalent to the convenience in which if I just wanted to play that game for the sake of playing it, I can do that 1,000 different ways that cost me nothing. Is it borderline legal issue there? Sure, but there's just so many different ways, digital ways, emulation, so on and so forth. We do these things, we buy these things, we collect them because it's something that we're into and we understand it's not practical at face value. And I understand that like not everybody agrees with the market rate of where things are going and, so on and so forth. But again, it's why we do what we do. But I would, shy to use the word practical in this scenario. Everybody collects for different reasons and for different purposes, whether it's something they grew up really interested in, recently got interested in. But here's the thing about collecting that people don't often remind you. You can do it in any which way that you desire. If you are passionate about something and you enjoy something, it is up to you how you want to collect. If you want to go and get the fanciest, craziest thing because you have the means to, more power to you. If you want to start small and build up over time, more power to you. I agree. There is probably a level or aspect of enjoying that journey, working up to things, saving up for things, develops a sense of appreciation for that thing. I don't disagree there. I've been on that side of the fence as somebody who grew up getting into a lot of different hobbies and things like trading cards as a kid and so on. Yeah, you have a appreciation of the fact that when you had to save up for these things and be able to get them and not have the disposable income to do that, it made that anticipation probably more exciting. But at the same time, I am somebody now, transparently, who has a decent amount of disposable income. I also do a lot of this stuff for a living, and I get to spend more than the average person would on some of these, call it frivolous things that I don't need, right? I don't need in my life to live. It's not a necessity. And that's the thing. We as collectors don't need these things. But again, collecting is just an ability to gather things that mean something to you in a specific genre. I don't think because people inherently do not play all the games that they get, they are not a collector. Do I personally think that games are meant to be played and enjoyed, and it's why I don't necessarily personally invest in like sealed things or things of that nature? Yeah, because I want to enjoy a lot of these games, or I want to have the opportunity to eventually play some of these games, pass them on, yada, yada, yada. But collecting for the sake of collecting is what a lot of people do. I think it's like looking at trading cards and how popular that has been and is now. I don't think everybody who collects like Pokemon cards and puts them in binders necessarily play the actual trading card game. Some certainly do. But for the ones who don't and just collect for the sake of collecting and like opening packs and doing those things, it doesn't make them any less of a collector. And that's a tough thing sometimes about subreddits like these, is like that gatekeep mindset. Because they don't collect the way that I collect, they are not valid. Because they collect faster, because they have more resources than I, or what have you, it makes their collection less than. Now I think, and I will say that if you are the opposite end, if you are somebody who has the ability to afford a lot of these things, or buy the most expensive things, or accrue a lot of these specific things quicker because of your resources, and you think you are better than other people because you have those things, yeah, I'm sure you deserve some criticism and negativity there. But at least what I saw here, OP just said, hey, this is the stuff I got in the last year, and I'm proud of it. I'm here to share it because that's what this subreddit is about. I didn't see any tones of like holier than thou, at least again in my initial research. So I think that's a thing that pains me with these kind of discussions and insight and discourse around this stuff. People can collect in different ways. And I think at the end of the day, context matters a lot. When I was younger, I started doing this YouTube thing at 11 years old. I worked very hard and saved up the small amount of like, not salary, I didn't have a job at 11, but what do you call that? Like chores and allowance that I would get as a kid. And then eventually, when I was getting paid for doing YouTube early on, I would scrap and save all that money that I made in order to invest back into the thing that I was doing, buy new tech products, do a review, get more money, on and on. And that made me appreciate working for my dollar for sure. Overall, that when I was growing up, I used to get a lot of these comments online on the internet. And maybe that's why it hits a little home, where like people would often speculate like the reason I got up in this space so young was because my parents were buying all these things for me, and I came from like wealth and riches. And look, zero shade to my parents. My parents did a ton for me growing up. I'm not arguing that, but we were by no means, overtly wealthy or had that level of privilege. I had to work hard for it. And that's the context that's not always seen sometimes, I think, on the internet. Look, there are definitely people who have it way better off, and there are people who do have things just kind of handed to them on a silver platter. But even then, I think, at least for me in my life, whether it's video game collecting or luxury items or way people live their lifestyle, it doesn't affect me. And I'd be ignorant or maybe just jealous for me to think that the way other people live their life and decide to do things with their pockets or income or situation affects how I live. It's not hurting me. Then why should I have, a direct opinion of how they live their life? In the same way here, this person's collecting the way they want to collect, and does it seem like they're throwing out negativity to other people, at least from the surface? So why should it bother me the way that they aim to collect and the things that they aim to collect? The other argument is around like people who do this tend to burn out really fast or tend to just sell off their collection. And my argument there is great. A lot of how I accrued my collection in the last couple of years is people who were getting out of the hobby, people who've graduated from it, people who just didn't want to keep this on their shelves anymore, and they would rather see it go to people who are in the hobby and still passionate about it. And if this person decides to sell off all this stuff in a couple of years, why does that matter? At least it's going to people who will then appreciate it for what it is when they get it. That's my 2 cents. However, I would love to hear and add on to the discourse and discussion. What are your thoughts down below? Good, bad, and defensive, what people are saying in the comments. I still encourage and want to hear it, because that is what the internet at the end of the day is about. It is open discussion, this open forum and open feedback. So, as always, gamers, thanks for watching.